Okuplok. 23,000 enemies in a sequence of extremely challenging fights. Under normal circumstances, I would now say that no one has ever completed this map in a single segment. However, that is no longer true. I've previously achieved a saveless run of Okuplok, but there's a catch. I picked the easiest difficulty setting, so this was not ultra-violence. Now, I don't know if an actual ultra-violence single-segment run of this map is still years away from happening, or just around the corner, but either way, we still have work to do. Welcome, I'm Coincident, and you are watching a Doom strategy guide where we use science to search for the most survivable strategies with the goal of beating Okuplok without mid-fight save games. Today we brave atop the Mancubus Cliff, a narrow pathway where falling down means death and where hundreds of Mancubi fire at you from across this chasm of blood. Oh, and by the way, are you ready to face a 394-strong Kako invasion? In this video, I will share a few lessons related to this challenge. Today you can learn about multi-directional attacks, the pie tactic, rocket flickering, the basics of monster herding, micro-dodging techniques, and other strategies that make this fight become easy. Let's first step back for a moment and put things into perspective. If you've reached this fight, that means previously you have single-handedly humiliated a pack of 16 Archviles, and you don't even have the BFG yet. Impressive stuff, by the way. You leave the Archvile cave onto the Mancubus Cliff, but there's no Kako demons yet. In fact, only when you step across this special line on the map are the Kakos released. That means you have time to prepare. The Mancubus Cliff is split into two halves. You can walk across the first, but the second is out of reach. The cliff has enough rocket pickups to kill all the Kakos and all the Mancubi on this first half of the cliff. But you do not have enough ammo to kill all the Mancubi on the second half. They're actually so far away from you that the Doom engine doesn't even draw them on the screen. This makes it extremely wasteful to kill those Mancubi at this distance. If you do it anyway, you'll run out of ammo later and get overwhelmed by the Kakos. So you'll need to leave the far Mancubi alive. However, you should kill the closer Mancubi in advance. This is important to make things safer and give you more space, which is the most limited resource here. When the close Mancubi are dead, go back into the cave, grab the medkits, the supercharge, and the ammo because this next fight will be a point of no return. When you trigger the Kako demons, these barriers will close behind you, and these other barriers in front of you take 5 minutes to open. So you can't run anywhere, you need to face the Kako army here. This encounter is composed of two main challenges. Challenge number 1, multi-directional attack. The Kako demons and Mancubi attack you from two different directions. You're forced to constantly look at two angles before you know where to dodge. The wider the angle, the more dangerous the situation. Challenge number 2, running out of space. There are so many Kakos and it takes so long to kill them that they will slowly surround your position until you run out of space and die. But let's first deal with the multi-directional attack problem. There are several tactics to deal with this challenge, one of which we've already covered in previous episodes. I'm going to call this tactic number 1, Pie. No, not that pie. Not that one either. Pie actually stands for Pattern plus Improv. Back on the Imp staircase, we needed to dodge both Mancubi and Imp fireballs simultaneously. But the Mancubi fireballs were automatically dodged by steadily moving up the stairs as a pattern, leaving you free to improvise your movement to dodge the Imp fireballs. On the Mastermind Prison, the same situation occurred with the Barons and the Revenants. The Revenant rockets were automatically dodged by moving around the arena in a circle pattern, leaving you free to improvise your movement to dodge the Baron fireballs. Unfortunately, the Mancubus Cliff has no elevation changes and not enough space to circle strafe or horseshoe. Tactic number 1 is great, but it doesn't apply here. However, there's a simpler way to deal with multi-directional attacks. Tactic number 2, line them up. Move all the monsters together so that then all the enemy projectiles come from one direction only, with the added bonus of infighting. This is easier said than done, and in the case of the Mancubus Cliff, it's not exactly feasible. There's no way to move the Kakos to the second half of the cliff where the Mancubi are. But there's a third, even simpler way to deal with the problem. Tactic number 3, subscribe! Press the like button. Join on Patreon. Tactic number 3, take cover. This one is so obvious it often gets forgotten, but if the arena has spots of cover, use them wisely to dismiss one of the attack directions, even if just momentarily. This tactic was previously used both in the Imp Staircase and the Mastermind Prison, and fortunately enough it can also be used here. Looking at the Mancubus Cliff in more detail, there's an area here where the Mancubi have no line of sight on you. Let's call this spot mid-cover. There's also this other corner by the exit where the Mancubi can't hit you. Let's call it exit cover. Finally, after the Cacodemons have moved away from their closet, you can run to the start so the Caco Cloud itself blocks the Mancubi fireballs. This spot has the extra advantage of infighting. Let's call it start cover. Use these 3 cover spots to stay safe from the Mancubi so you can solely focus on dodging the Caco fireballs. Now, you may have noticed that the mid and exit covers are extremely small. To make the most out of this space, you need to use an additional strategy to dodge the Cacodemon fireballs and stay as long as possible in each cover spot. This is where micro-dodging comes into play. The idea is to begin at one of the edges of this spot and move through to the other side as slowly as possible. You want to extend your stay within this cover as much as you can because here, it's easy to prevent all damage. But when you run out of cover, you're in danger from stray fireballs. Micro-dodging maximizes the time you can stay within a limited space. As the name indicates, you want to move as little as possible. The goal is to maximize monster projectile density, which is inversely proportional to your movement speed. So move slowly, because if you don't, you will spread fireballs across the whole place, and when the fireballs are about to hit you, you're forced to move out of cover early. The best plan here is to actually not move and wait. Carefully watch as the high-density focused beam of fireballs approaches you, and at the very last moment before you take any damage, take a step aside and wait here to repeat the process again. The mid-cover is a great spot to practice this technique because it lets you stay put for more than 20 seconds before taking the first step. That's a lot of time of free invulnerability. But this kind of micro-dodging is only possible if you're looking at the projectiles. If you're shooting somewhere else and you can't see the projectiles, then the only way to micro-dodge is to strafe a little bit every few seconds, which means your cover will run out faster. By the way, I highly recommend that you use deep rocketing here, which deals more damage per second and per rocket than wide rocketing. Aim at the center of the Cacos in a straight line for as long as you can. After a while, the splash damage pushes the Cacodemons away and their fireballs might be harder to see and to dodge. This usually coincides with the moment that you're running out of ammo, so it's a good idea to move out. Now let's take a look at the start cover. Here, the Caco Cloud creates a large shadow of protection from the Mancubi, so micro-dodging is not strictly necessary. The biggest danger of the start cover is getting surrounded, so pay attention to this corner of the cliff. If the Cacos are getting close, it's time to get the hell out of here. Finally, the exit cover is the smallest and a great candidate for micro-dodging. First, move to this corner and stand on top of the second medkit. The first medkit is dangerous because you can still get hit by the Mancubi. Again, deep rocket the Cacos and aim here. For now, wait until the fireballs are just about to hit you, then dodge slightly left and backwards. After a certain point, you can see the Mancubi, which means you're out of cover. You have about 11 seconds before the Mancubi fireballs reach you, so quickly run back across the cliff and grab some rockets. Now here is the big drawback of micro-dodging. Because you stacked a lot of enemy projectiles on the spots you were standing on before, you'll need to wait before you can use those spots again. So stand in this alcove and pay close attention to the Mancubi fireballs. After a couple of seconds, when the previous Caco fireballs dissipate, get back on top of the second medkit. Also, if you hear the barriers opening behind you, do not move inside yet. There's a lot of Revenants waiting for you there. Let's safely kill all the Cacos first before bringing a third party into the fight, okay? Although sometimes a fireball clips through the wall and wakes up a Revenant prematurely. If that happens, when you hear the barriers opening, quickly kill the Revenant before you face rocket yourself. Unfortunately, after you camp on the exit for a while, you cannot move back. If the Cacodemons surround you here, it's game over. So time to deal with challenge number 2, running out of space. It might be tempting to immediately run to the exit. After all, you have 3 medkits here, lots of rockets, and it's the spot with the largest distance between you and the cacos. However, if you do this, the cacos will overwhelm you every time. This strategy has a 0% survivability. To deal with the space problem, we need to talk about another strategy, and it just so happens that the Mancubus Cliff is the perfect place to learn about it. This fight is actually a beginner's class for monster herding. There are many tricks and nuances to this strategy, and on future episodes we'll delve deeper into the subject. But for now, we'll just cover the basics. The number 1 rule of thumb about monster herding is move the monsters away from where you want to be next. If the exit cover is the best place to survive because you have medkits and all, then you should not immediately bring the cacodemons there. Instead, drag the cacodemons away, back to the start for example, and keep killing them there to buy yourself enough time so that later, when you do move to the exit, the cacos will no longer have the numbers to overwhelm you. This is, in fact, a fully working strategy that I will call start-exit. The big problem is that by moving to the start early, the cacodemons are not yet in a position to provide cover. So you need to fight them at the same time as you dodge the Mancubus fireballs. This is the multi-directional attack problem I mentioned before. A common trick used in this scenario is called rocket flickering. If you've memorized the rate of fire of the rocket launcher, you can simultaneously fire at one spot while looking at another. By mouse flickering left and right, you're aiming left when a rocket is fired, but you're looking right the rest of the time. Now you might be thinking, why even do this at all? It seems unnecessary, right? Why not just aim at these cacodemons so you can see the Mancubus fireballs without shaking your screen? Well, you can do that. It is easier to perform, but you will be less effective, and here's 2 reasons why. Number 1, these cacos are the greatest candidates for infighting. They are the most likely to get hit by the Mancubus, but if you shoot them, they will not infight. Number 2, you get the most overall damage by deep rocketing, and that means aiming here. So if you can manage to learn rocket flickering, I recommend that you do. Be careful when you get to this spot on the map. This path along the cliff is aligned with the Mancubus on the far side, which means that there's a high risk of taking damage, especially with all the corpses obstructing your view. So I recommend that when you arrive at this corner, do not stay here. Immediately run to the exit. If you need to, slow down here and make sure you carefully dodge the incoming fireballs. Once at the exit, you need to wait before you see the caco cloud again. It's not worth it to do what I'm doing here. Don't shoot at those stray cacodemons in the distance. They're very hard to hit and you will waste rockets. It's best to just leave them infighting and wait. When you do see the big group of cacos, open fire and do the micro-dodging maneuver. Careful not to rocket yourself in the face with this right ledge. Make sure you go replenish your ammunition once you loop out of cover. This is the moment you want to pay the most attention to the Mancubus fireballs. Repeat this process and keep grabbing ammo until all the cacos are dead. I like to stop firing when my ammo is in multiples of 5 to not waste ammo when grabbing those big boxes of rockets. The cacos are getting close and things are getting spicy. If the cacos get very close, you can use the plasma to prevent self-damage. This was the start-exit strategy in a nutshell. Another option is to go for the mid-exit strategy. Release the cacodemons and run on top of this box of rockets, which is the westmost edge of the mid-cover. Now fire at the cacodemons while you micro-dodge to the right. Don't be too greedy here, take a generous step aside. Avoid staying very close to the previous beam of fire. All it takes is one fireball at a slight angle and you'll get hit on the shoulder. Stray cacodemons are the worst. When you feel there's no wall behind you, run to the exit before the Mancubi hit you. The strategy at the exit cover is the same as before. However, this time you can start shooting immediately when you get here. Again, focus on the Mancubi fireballs when you move out of cover. This wall where the ammo is has a slight indent which covers you from most of the cacos. Kill any stray cacos that get too close before they become a problem. Cacodemon fireballs coming from the right side are the most difficult to see here. Due to the level geometry, some cacodemons float up above the others. These cacos can be very annoying to kill. This was the mid-exit strategy in a nutshell. I ran these two strategies many times in equal conditions. Can you guess which one is the most survivable and why? If you need to think about it, pause now and then write your answer in the comments. Here are my results. The start-exit strategy had a survival rate of 81% and an average damage taken of 146. The mid-exit strategy had a survival rate of 89% and an average damage taken of 117. The start-exit strategy is slightly inferior because moving to the start first provides no cover from the high-damage Mancubus fireballs. But even if you get to the exit unharmed, you then have to wait before you see the big Caco cloud again. So what's the point of herding the Cacos away if the time you saved by doing so is then wasted waiting for the big Caco group to reappear? In fact, most of the deaths of the start-exit strategy happened precisely because sometimes I still got overwhelmed at the exit. With the mid-exit strategy, you can shoot immediately when you reach this spot because you didn't drag the Cacos to the west, so they're always in your line of sight. However, neither of these strategies does a very good job of monster herding. Even with the mid-exit strategy, the Cacos often got very close to the exit. So I propose that we do a better job of monster herding by not going so soon for the exit and trying out strategies of length 3. This is the start mid-exit strategy. The beginning is the same as before. We go start first without cover and use rocket flickering to try and dodge everything. I usually only start flickering after 10 seconds of getting here. That's how long it usually takes for the Mancubus fireballs to reach us. After moving out of the start, you can use the mid-cover as you micro-dodge forwards. You don't want to stay here for too long. The Cacos are floating all over the place and it's not easy to keep them all within your field of view. Once you feel that you've run out of cover or that the Cacos are getting too close, run to the exit. On the exit spot, perform the usual strategy. It's best to grab the farthest boxes of rockets first because later they'll be blocked by the Cacos. But beware, this is when you are the most exposed. Keep your eyes focused on the lower half of your screen. This was the start mid-exit strategy in a nutshell. Mid-start-exit is another 3-length strategy where you first place yourself on top of this box of rockets, which is the east edge of the mid-cover, and then you micro-dodge west. When there's a monster corpse very close to me blocking my view, I try not to stay in that spot for very long. After you run out of space or rockets, move all the way back to the start. I like to use the plasma here to safely kill cackles in my way and push any other cackles out of place back into the group. You've just dragged all the cackles forward, so now they provide cover from the Mancubi. But beware of stray fireballs coming from this direction. You need to improvise your movement to dodge them at the same time as your strafing right pattern will guarantee you dodge all the other fireballs. Also, do not let the cackle cloud trap you at this edge. Once you reach this corner, run to the exit. Careful with the Mancubi fireballs. Slow down if you need to. Same strategy at the exit spot. Because you just came from the start, you might need to wait a bit here before you see the large group again. A cackle fireball can only deal 40 damage tops, but Mancubi fireballs can deal up to 64 damage each. Be careful, dodge everything, and don't let the RNG ruin your chances. Notice how the barriers seem to lower earlier than usual. This is one of the advantages of the 3-length strategies. You spent more time fighting elsewhere and you have more room to breathe at the exit cover. This was the mid-start exit strategy in a nutshell. Once again, I ran these strategies many times in equal conditions. If you want, take a moment to guess which one is more survivable and comment with your second guess. All done? Good. Here are my results. The start mid-exit strategy had a survival rate of 100% and an average damage taken of 77. The mid-start exit strategy had a survival rate of 98% and an average damage taken of 62. Now, it's important to note that 100% does not mean that I never die. It just means that I didn't die on any one of my finite attempts. Had I done more attempts, I'm sure I would have died to a random mistake at least once. So interpret these numbers as approximations. In other words, 100% and 98% are equivalent for me. There's always a small statistical margin of error. The accuracy of these numbers depends on the size of my dataset, which, by the way, I will share at the end of the video, including the calculations of the standard variation and the 90% confidence interval for those who are curious. But, mathematics apart, these strategies are clearly more survivable than their two-length counterparts. Both strategies have similar performances. Even though their error margins have some overlap, there is a slight advantage for mid-start-exit. The reason is, the start-mid-exit strategy exposes you to the Mancubus fireballs, which is a multi-directional attack problem. The mid-start-exit strategy also exposes you to this problem because the cacodemons can shoot at you from this direction, but the cacos deal significantly less damage than the Mancubus. The mid-start-exit strategy gives you a lot of safe time to shoot rockets from mid, but with the start-mid-exit strategy, you can't stay here for long because the cacos are floating everywhere. So ultimately, mid-start-exit is the best strategy so far. But now that we've reached the 3-length strategies, we can try going exit first. If you start by camping here and fire 100 rockets exactly, you still have time to run back. Be very careful when crossing this corner and use the plasma to push back any cacodemon in your way. Once you reach this spot, you have 2 strategies to choose from. The exit-mid-exit strategy is not very survivable. You can only stay mid for a very short time before running the risk of getting blocked by the cacos. But even if you survive all the way back to the exit cover, you did not herd the cacos away enough and you will most likely get overwhelmed and die. That was a good attempt, but no cookie. Not with this strategy anyway. The exit-start-exit strategy is survivable. You loop back to the start, herding the cacodemons away for a while. I like to aim below where those cacodemons are floating so that the infinitely vertical splash damage kills or hurts some of the cacos up there. Don't let yourself get cornered and then return to the exit spot. Wait until you see the big group of cacos. With this strategy, you can finish off the cacos without getting overwhelmed. You have a good chance of surviving. However, if we compare the exit-start-exit and mid-start-exit strategies, there is no advantage in going exit first instead of mid first. In both cases, you're dragging the cacos south, and in both cases, you're going start afterwards. But going exit first has 3 disadvantages. 1. You deal less splash damage because you're not aiming at the center of the cacos. 2. You need to cross this corner and risk getting hit by fireballs. 3. At the exit position, you also drag the cacos east, which makes them approach this bloodfall and fly all the way up. This is the reason why some cacodemons fly so high above, and it unnecessarily complicates the strategy. Therefore, I recommend that you never go exit first. Going mid first is a safer alternative. This concludes the exploration of all 3-length strategies. So when it comes to strategy discovery, how much further can we go from here? Can we keep exploring more combinations of start and mid positions before going exit, giving us virtually infinite possible strategies? Well, not really, and here's an example why. A 4-length strategy to try next is start mid, start exit. And it turns out that after dragging the cacos start and then going mid, running back to the start a second time is extremely dangerous. There's stray cacodemons floating everywhere. The caco cloud can block you on either this ledge or this one, and even if you don't get blocked, the second loop on the start cover is bound to be very short. The start-mid-start sequence is dangerous. It results in a strategy that is deadlier than the previous ones. From this observation, we can extrapolate that any 5-length strategy, such as start-mid, exit, or mid-start, exit, will contain the start-mid-start sequence. So all strategies of length 5 and above will be inferior. Remember that the goal was to herd the cacodemons away, and that goal is already achieved on length 3. So delaying the move to the exit for longer doesn't really achieve anything other than keeping you in danger and far away from the medkits for longer. But before we finish, there is one final 4-length strategy that is worth a shot. That is the mid-start, mid-exit strategy, which does not contain the start-mid-start sequence, and is a variation of the mid-start-exit, the best strategy so far. The only difference is that, after leaving from the start cover, you don't immediately run to the exit, but instead take cover mid a second time. Try to kill these cackles out of place now, but don't linger here for too long. If you did manage to kill those out-of-place cackles before, then here you'll have no fireballs coming from the right side, which makes things significantly easier. Unfortunately, that was not the case for me in this run. At this point I start rocket flickering because I'm out of the shadow of the cackle cloud. This is where the strategy changes. You place yourself mid again and micro-strafe from left to right. Again, the cackles are floating everywhere, so keep strafing and don't stay here for very long. When you notice that you've grabbed the box of rockets, that is the signal that it's time to move out. This high cackle is so annoying. You can try to just ignore it until you have a good angle to shoot it down, preferably without missing this much. Every rocket that you miss is ammo and time that is wasted. Keep an eye on that cackle floating to the right side. That's your blind spot right there. Pay attention to cackles that are going to appear behind the right wall as well. They can be a source of face rockets if you're not careful. This was the mid-start, mid-exit strategy in a nutshell. Once more, I ran this final strategy many times in equal conditions to the other ones. Take your guess and comment if you want to. Here are my results. The mid-start, mid-exit strategy had a survival rate of 98% and an average damage taken of 56. Does this mean that it's the best strategy? Not necessarily. Notice that the error margins of the two best strategies overlap almost entirely. So the only logical conclusion to take is that both strategies are equally survivable. These numbers do not show one clear winner, and that's okay. That's the reason I love science. Science does not pick favorites. Now, if you're still watching, I'll let you in on a little secret. I excluded 2 tricks from this video because they were not useful. The first is to wait here before releasing the cackles to provoke more infighting. The difference this makes is so minimal that I couldn't even measure it in my tests, so I don't think this is worth your time. A more interesting excluded trick is to line skip these triggers. This east-oriented line skip is only possible with a wall run, which is extremely difficult to pull off, especially with the Mancubus firing at you. Jumping around the line triggers is even more risky. But even if you skip the Cacodemon trap, the exit barriers also do not open, so this is useless. I believe your best course of action is to face the Cacodemons. Before we wrap things up, there is one fight left, the Revenants. Forgot about them? Well, dealing with 47 skeletons in such a small closet may feel scary, but the Cacos are dead, so you can run back for cover. Also, the Revenants are deaf, so you can safely wake them up one by one. As always, these numbers are based on my own playstyle. Results may vary. Try the strategies yourself and see what works best for you. Only with practice can you become like a ninja, outmaneuvering this army of cacodemons. And maybe then you'll be ready for the next challenge. If you can't wait for the next episode, check out Patreon. You can get early access to all my videos, sometimes weeks in advance. You can also watch my private video series, Behind the Scenes with Coin, and get your name on screen, all of this depending on the tier you choose. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, good luck and happy face rockets.